morning and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Jim Vincent. We have two very interesting segments for you this morning. In our first segment, we have Dr. Hume Johnson, and she's a Associate Professor of Public Relations at Roger Williams University, and she runs a branding and communication consultancy, and we're going to talk more about that. In our second segment, we have Eugenio Fernandez, and I said I'm going to practice that. Eugenio Fernandez, who is going to talk about some aspects of health education. So let's get right into my first segment with my first-time guest, but certainly not my last, and it's somebody that I've known for a little bit, Dr. Hume Johnson. Hume?
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
I said this day would come, and
Yes,
here we are.
Absolutely. Very good to be here.
Well, it's really great to have you, and you know, by that accent, I guess out from the top, I'll let people know that you're from Jamaica.
I am originally from Jamaica.
Right, we were talking about Merlene Audie Page in the green room before we came out, or the blue room, and you have a consultancy. You deal with professionals and politicians, and your whole thing is about building brand, you know, and communicate messaging effectively to target publics or target markets. All right, and that's a mouthful. And I know you've written a book. It's called Brand You: Reinvent Yourself, Redefine Your Future. So I'm going to, right from the beginning, hold that book up. All right, so she's an author as well as a professor. So let's get right into it, because I have a personal interest in that, you know, in terms of branding and whatever. As you know, I'm the president of the NAACP, and it's all about branding because people have various ideas of what that is, and most of the time it's not even near what it is. So this is interesting to me.
Your brand is everybody has a personal brand. So whether you believe in it or not, whether you are cultivating your brand or not, everybody has a personal brand, because we have a perception of us that people have in their minds. Even before they meet us, they have a perception of us. So when we talk about personal branding, we're really talking about you, who you are, your personality, your experience, your expertise, your talents, your gifts, your assets, your values. So we want people to take stock of all of these things and how they present themselves to the world, because sometimes we are perceived in a way which is different from how we would want to be perceived. And so it would be interesting for people to find out how they are perceived by others, by employers, how are they seen by their target publics. How is Jim seen in the community? Are you articulating a brand that talks about diversity in a way which is understandable to people, or people already have a perception of that, but sometimes you will have to engineer it. It's not a false image, because it has to be authentic, exactly who you are at your core.
Right.
So that's what we try to do in our consultancy.
Because if you don't do it that way, you won't have credibility.
Exactly.
You know, you have to be yourself, but you have to articulate it in ways that people can understand it. So no matter how much I might know the topic, if I can't communicate it effectively, then it's for naught. So it sounds like everybody needs a personal brand, and let's talk about why that matters.
You know, there was a time when you didn't need a personal brand. You could go to college, you could graduate, you could take a job and stay 20 or 30 years in that same job, and then you could probably wait on the employer to smile on you and give you a promotion, or you wait until you retire, you get a gold ring or gold pen, and then you leave. But the industry is getting more competitive. The job market is fiercely competitive, and so employees in particular have to find new ways of demonstrating their value, particularly people of color, because institutionally we are suffering a disadvantage going in. We're paid lower, we're not getting access to top-level jobs. New research says that because we lack what they call executive presence. Now, if you know what your skills are and what you bring to the table, then you're able to articulate that in a way which may be attractive to the employer or the job that you want. And so with personal branding, what you want to do is to ensure that do I know what my skills are? I have a position in this organization, but what exactly am I exceptional at, so that you can effectively give value to the organization.
Sure, and that's what everybody's looking for, the value that each employee has. And sometimes, what they bring is not being utilized effectively because there's a miscommunication between the employer and or the person.
Exactly. And sometimes the organization also need employees that can help to articulate the organization's mission.
Absolutely.
Because these days it's not just about branding your business. It's also about how can the employees that you have in your business, how can they help you to articulate your values and your skills and your products.
So it's very important to let them know what you're doing in every aspect, as well as how they fit into the overall.
How they fit in.
So this is more than a buzzword, because some people, what is all this branding? Is this something new or something? Not really, and it's more than a buzzword. It's really crucial to how one is going to function out here.
Absolutely. I can't see how you can achieve success without knowing who you are and what you bring to the table. And you'd be surprised how many seasoned professionals in their career for many, many years, and they still can't tell you. They'll tell you what their position is,
right,
but they can't tell you precisely what value they are bringing to the table, because it's not that they don't know, it's something that has not really been discussed. It's not something that they sit and think about. And so personal branding, what we do in personal branding coaching is to get you to take stock of all of your assets and your skills and articulate that to the publics which are important to you.
So what are the main ways for professionals to discover and build their personal brand? Let's get more into the specifics.
So in the book, I really offer a 5-step blueprint as to how you can build your brand. Number one, you really have to reflect. Reflect on what are you passionate about? What are your skills? What do you bring to the table? What would you read about for an entire day and not get bored? What would you get up for 4 a.m. to do, even if you're not getting paid?
Right. I was just going to say.
You are quite familiar with that. You've been doing this program for 18 years.
And I don't get paid.
And you don't get paid.
So I must love it.
You must love it. Or you must be offering some value, which is important. And so that reflection is important. Almost like an audit of what your skills and your experience and your expertise is. Secondly, I always bring in values. What are your values? We don't do jobs for the sake of it. I think if you want to be a lawyer, you have a fundamental concept of what justice is, or at least of injustice. And that is why people operate. I believe in excellence, and I believe that everybody can achieve excellence. And that is why I'm an educator and I'm a journalist, because I believe I like communication. And so our values are fundamental to our personal brand. Thirdly, you have to create your brand. So having figured out what your comprehensive set of skills are, now you have to think about, what is my purpose? Where can I contribute? What problem do I want to solve? In what industry can I offer my skills? And how might I help to resolve some of the problems that I see in my industry? And obviously, number 4 is communicating your brand. A lot of people think that personal branding is just tweaking their social media pages. I would say it is not. You really want to brand yourself offline first, because you have to know who you are first and what you're bringing to the table. Then you can advertise that on the various platforms that are available. But I always tell people, you can also donate to a charity. You can also volunteer your time. All of those communicate. Action communicates what your brand is, because people can't see inside of us. And so our brand is manifested in what they see us do, especially what they see us do consistently. So I tell my students, if you consistently turn up late, if you consistently are not operating in a way which is positive, then you're already articulating to me what your brand is.
That's a big word, consistently. And I think consistent. I think that's so important. And I tell people, you have to be consistent over time, and then that will bear fruit. So I'm glad we're talking.
People are seeing you do this thing consistently. Also, you're communicating your brand to them.
Now, you grew up in Jamaica. You started your career as a TV journalist. Let's talk a little bit about that. But we have 4 minutes, so I don't want to not talk more about the book, but just briefly.
I started my career as a TV journalist with the Jamaica Information Service, and then I was a specialist newsreader with Radio Jamaica. At the same time, I was a political speechwriter with two Government of Jamaica senators, and when I was at university, for 10 years of my life, I was a publicist for one of the iconic reggae artists in Jamaica. So my job has been in journalism and political communication, and that's how I really started in personal branding, because I was busy trying to build the profile of these young politicians and young entertainers, trying to raise their profile.
When you said politicians, I thought immediately of Manley and Seaga. Seaga and Manley. It seemed like those two.
Ministers. And I was a youth advisor on the Prime Minister's Youth Advisory Council of P.J. Patterson. I'm not sure.
I remember him too.
P.J. Patterson.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
So your personal brand, if you had to describe it, is what?
You know what? My personal brand is built on exceptional communication skills and a belief in excellence, and a belief that everybody can achieve excellence. And so I really draw on my over 20 years of experience in strategic communications and in journalism. I also have international experience, having lived in New Zealand and Australia and here. And so you're thinking 4 different contexts. And so I bring global perspectives, and I bring strong communication skills to help people to kind of discover their brand and help them to effectively communicate their message.
Well, we're going to be talking more, because I'm fascinated by the whole thing.
Thank you.
For those who just tuned in, we're talking to Dr. Hume Johnson. She's written a book, Brand You, Reinvent Yourself, Redefine Your Future. So this is the book, and it's fascinating. She's been doing this for 20 years. She's from Jamaica. If there's one thing that viewers should take away from today, what would that be?
Yes, your brand is not the job title that you have. Your brand is not the position that you have. Your brand is who you are. And secondly, it's never, ever too late to reinvent yourself and to unleash your personal power.
Right, and it's interesting, because my work at the NAACP Providence branch, sometimes people will say, Jim, you got to be a politician. You got to run. you got to be a politician. I said, well, I should be a politician. I am a politician. I'm not an elected official, but certainly
you are interfacing with public.
I'm a politician, because those are the kinds of skills that are crucial in terms of being effective as leading a civil rights organization.
And there are a couple of politicians here that I've worked with in the past. Nellie Gorbea, when she was at Housing Works, I worked with her in our communication strategy with our team, and also one of the candidates for governor in this last primaries.
And Nellie Gorbea, of course, now is our Secretary of State here in Rhode Island, and doing quite well.
Absolutely.
Sure. Now we have about a minute, so let's. If there's something I didn't touch on, let's touch on it.
Well, one of the things that I want people to remember is that your brand it cannot begin on social media. It has to begin offline. It has to begin with you sorting out what your passions are, what is your personality, what are your personal attributes. At RW, last year or the year before, I started the first ever course on personal branding, because I really believe that graduates should know what skills they bring to the table before you go off to job hunt. And what I find is that the students were able to articulate what their skills are in a very interesting way. Even my students in public speaking also do personal branding, because you building credibility. When you know who you are, then people are more inclined to listen to you. So even for public speakers like yourself, if you have more of a sense of what you bring to the table, then you come across in a more credible way. And
credibility is so important, when you're trying to talk before a group, because if they don't feel it, then you might as well not have even been up there in the first place. I'm fascinated. We're going to talk some more, offline. This is great. Again, this is Dr. Hume Johnson, Brand You, Reinvent Yourself, Redefine Your Future. So this is the book.
Yes,
she's an Associate Professor of Public Relations at Roger Williams University. Roger Williams, I love that university. We work closely with them as well. So thank you very much for being
no worries. It was
the person that you are.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
The pleasure was all